Said to come from the combination of a snapping turtle and an armadillo, this walking fortress of a monster devours everything in its path. It is feared by virtually all creatures, including other powerful monsters and even others of its kind, and wherever it goes, it is followed by earthquakes, landslides, and sinkholes. This is the Bulette. And yes, that's how it's pronounced. I was also shocked. Here is the monster manual entry for the Bulette. Let's go through it real quick. We are told that they are an enormous predator that many call a land shark that lives only to feed. They are quick to anger and are known to be greedy. They fear no other creature and attack with no regard for enemy numbers or strength. And here they tell us why they're called land sharks. Bulette have the ability to tunnel underground thanks to their powerful claws. In their tunneling, they uproot trees, cause landslides, and leave sinkholes behind them wherever they go. Then, when they sense vibrations in the earth originating from the surface, they burst out from the ground in order to eat whoever it is making them. Now over here, we're told that Bulettes dislike the flesh of elves and dwarves, which is interesting. They also tell us that they love halfling meat the most, and particularly love to hunt them. It's always fascinating that the different kinds of humanoids appear to taste so different to monsters. But anyways, Bulettes have no lair, they simply roam territories of up to 30 miles in length, eventually leaving the territory when they have exhausted all of the food in the area, only to then find another territory with which to exhaust. In particular, they seem to favor finding humanoid settlements, terrorizing them until the residents have all either fled or the beast has been killed. Now this part here is of particular note. All creatures shun Bulettes, which treat anything that moves as food, even other predators and Bulettes. I can totally see a mighty and powerful dragon legitimately fearing a Bulette. I mean, sure, you're going to win that encounter, most probably, but the Bulette is going to bite your hand off. So in the end, is that even a victory? Better to just run away if that's the case. This makes perfect sense to me. Now, the last portion of lore that we have here says that sages believe that the Bulette came about as a result of an experiment, one that crossbred a snapping turtle and an armadillo, with just a bit of demonic ichor infused in there. The reason people think that is because, and this part is very important, because their young are almost never seen. Oh, it'll be very fun to get to that in a bit, but let's just finish the monster manual here. In the stat block, we can see that these guys are freaking fast. 40 feet of movement speed means that they're not going to outspeed a horse, but the vast majority of creatures that exist will have no way to outrun this thing. But that's not even the really impressive part. 40 speed of burrow speed is actually cracked. You might not know, but there's only one group of creatures that can burrow that fast, and those are the ancient dragons that can burrow. Literally, no other creature in the monster manual can burrow faster than 30 feet, and that includes creatures like the earth elemental and the Dao who can just materialize through the earth. This thing can burrow faster than most creatures can even sprint. Now, the monster manual doesn't actually explain how or why that is, but we will cover that later. We can see that the creature is strong and durable, but very, very dumb. Now here, this is interesting, look at his perception. That is not proficiency in perception, that is expertise in perception. These are rare in the monster manual, so that combined with tremor sense means that nothing can hide from these guys. Now, here by the end, we see that the Bulette is great at jumping, being able to jump up to 30 feet in long jump and 15 feet in high jump. But the interesting bit is that it does not require a running start to do so. That's fascinating, yet they don't tell us why that is. How is it able to do that? But anyways, this jump is used in conjunction with their deadly leap feature, where they can land on top of creatures in order to deal both bludgeoning and slashing damage. This is actually the reason why so many DMs kill players with Bulettes. Based on the damage that a Bulette can do with this ability, the creature should have a higher CR than 5, considering that, I mean, this can easily deal up to 60 points of damage spread around 2 targets, or maybe even 90 points of damage spread around 3 targets, which is just insane. The fact that there is no limit to how many times the Bulette can do this is also pretty nuts, but hey, that's, I guess, just part of what makes it so scary. And lastly, we have its bite, a formidable average of 30 points of damage with its maw. Just nothing else to see here. Oof. But there you go, that's the Monster Manual entry, so now as always, let's talk about what the Monster Manual did not tell you about the Bulette. But first, before we do that, this video is brought to you by a huge friend of the channel, the Dungeon Coach, who has just released his greatest project as of yet, a new tabletop RPG called DC-20. DC-20 is a Dungeons & Dragons style game that functions very much like D&D, but has several really interesting changes that spices up the gameplay and takes a great many strides forward in the design space for the genre. In DC-20, instead of a single action, you have 4 actions, each of which you can use to move, make attacks, disengage, dodge, or cast spells. Basically, anything that you can do in D&D with an action, you can in DC-20, except that you got 4 actions to do so, allowing you to mix and match several moves together into an epic cinematic turn. Same thing applies to monsters and villains. Now with 4 actions, enemies can have moves that cost multiple actions, creating depth and strategy. These extra actions can also be spent to grant yourself advantage on an attack or a check, and get this, those advantages stack, so if you needed to really make sure that an important grapple took place, you could spend your actions to grant yourself multiple sets of advantages in order to assure it, but of course, at the cost of spending all of your actions to do so. A lot of strategy has been added to the game. The best part is, in DC-20, the higher you roll, the better the result. When you attack, damage actually increases the higher you roll against the enemy's defenses, so no longer will rolling too high be considered a waste. Honestly, there's so much that I could talk about with DC-20. They got 12 classes to play with and 12 races to choose from. The way that you select your race is pretty cool too, because each race has several different features that are associated with them, and when you make your character, you get to select which of those features you adopt using a point system. Maybe your dwarf grew up in the deep caverns under the earth and developed tremor sense, or perhaps you grew up in the cold mountains and you are now particularly sturdy. You actually get to select what features your dwarf gets. DC-20 is about to enter beta, and I am so incredibly excited for this. I had a great time playing DC-20 with Dungeon Coach, D&D Shorts, D4 Deep Dive, and Lunch Break Heroes. The link, if you want to see the game, is on the description, but I had such an incredible blast doing so. DC-20 is entering beta on Kickstarter right now, so go over to the link below and check out DC-20 on Kickstarter using my link below. Everyone who pledges gets access to the beta at the end of the Kickstarter, so you have to take advantage now and try this game with your friends. DC-20 right now on Kickstarter. Use the link below. Thank you guys so much, and now back to the video. Quote, "The Bulette has a devastating effect on the ecosystem of any area it inhabits. Literally nothing that moves is safe from it. Man, animal, or monster. In the process of hunting and roaming, the land shark will uproot trees of considerable size. In hilly and rocky regions, the underground movements of a Bulette can start small landslides. Ogres, trolls, and even some giants all move off in search of greener and safe pastures when a Bulette appears. A Bulette can turn a peaceful farming community into a wasteland in a few short weeks, for no sane human or demi-human will remain in a region where a Bulette has been sighted." End quote. I usually don't mind it too much when the 5th edition Monster Manual omits certain things. After all, lore can be mostly flavor. It's just particularly sad when something is omitted that is either crucial for the understanding of the monster or how it behaves, or something with a real, tangible, mechanical application that has always made the monster pop. The Bulette is called the land shark, and it is not just because it swims under the ground like a submarine travels through the water. It is because it has a crest, and that crest occasionally pops out into the surface when the creature is hunting underground. Much how a shark has a fin that protrudes out from the water, the land shark has a metallic crest that does so as well. From the official art in 5th edition, it almost looks like they drew it here, but it's unclear, and the lore certainly makes absolutely no mention of it. The crest is important not just because it is part of the creature's identity and is what gives it the land shark name after all, but also because the crest is meant to hold the main weak spot of the creature. Every armored monster has a weak spot, a place in their body where the plates don't quite mesh, where a person could, with the right angle and aim, cut through the armor and strike at the fleshy inside of the beast. For the Bulette, the area sits right behind the crest, right in here. If you could somehow strike that area, the AC of the Bulette would basically drop all the way down to 10 from 17. The crest, however, is typically only raised high during moments of intense action, so it would be unlikely that you would be able to say surprise a Bulette that is sleeping by hitting the weak spot. Now, another reason why the Bulette is called a land shark is because, much like sharks, they do not die of old age, and the older a Bulette gets, the bigger it grows. Now, I do not know if we still believe that that's true for sharks anymore, but I digress. Adventurers have noted seeing Bulettes being as big as 11 feet tall. They just keep growing. Now, the life cycles of Bulettes are actually interesting because not much is known about them. The 5th edition Monster Manual claims babies are rarely ever seen. 1st and 2nd edition claim that, quote, no one is certain how or where the young are born or hatched, end quote. Even the Dungeons & Dragons Dragon magazines have no clue where the Bulettes come from. Then, going back to 5th edition, we are told, quote, Bulettes come together only to mate, resulting in a bloody act of claws and teeth that usually ends with the male's death and consumption, end quote. What is going on here? Well, it is true that neither a pregnant Bulette nor a Bulette egg has ever been seen. There's also a reason why no one has been able to gaze at the mating ritual of a male and a female Bulette. But that reason is not what the 5th edition Monster Manual tells you. Monster Manual lore is canon, of course, but Forgotten Realms lore is more canon. At least to us, because Forgotten Realms is what I'm interested in. A cool little book called Elminster's Ecologies has the answers for us in an entry for the region of Cormanthor. You are really gonna want to listen to this. But before we do that, a few interesting bits of lore that are, again, Forgotten Realms canon. The Bulette tends to eat prey feet first, and they don't always finish their meals, leaving torsos and heads splattered about. And sometimes they only eat the legs, leaving people squirming and screaming while still alive. Also, Bulettes are notorious for falling asleep in the places they eat, sometimes surrounded by cadavers, and sometimes with still screaming people half-eaten in their maws. And now that we got those terrifying factors out of the way, a fun one. Bulettes breathe with a wheezing sound and then drool when they exhale. How fun. But the real topic at hand, reproduction. In the Forgotten Realms, the male will find a proper territory to begin its mating ritual. In this territory, it will kill everything it can, then spread the cadavers around the area in a circle. This inevitably attracts predators, which are then subsequently also killed by the Bulette, and then their cadavers will join the circle as well. Once the boundary of the mating territory is complete, the Bulette will dig a shallow pit in the center, in which it will then grab a bunch of the bones from the victims and slowly turn them into bone dust in order to create a little pile. This will usually last about a week, with the Bulette just sort of sitting there, just gnawing at the bones and then spreading the pile of dust everywhere. Within a month's time, the pungent smell of death in the area will attract a female Bulette, which inevitably will find the mating area. Both the male and the female then will mate atop the pit and on top of the bone ash. And eventually the male will leave and the female will stay. Now, here's the fascinating part, and the part that has made it so difficult for bards and sages to figure out the reproduction of the Bulettes. See, the gestation period for the female Bulette is only a few hours. That very same evening after she mates, she will lay up to a dozen rock-hard, spine-covered eggs. Those eggs will only stay as eggs for one single night, before they hatch in the morning. Now, in the morning, once the babies hatch, the mother will make a loud bellowing sound like an elephant. It's unclear why she does this, the lore doesn't really explain it, but it might be to just let the babies know exactly where she is. The reason for that is that as soon as the babies hatch, they all attack the mother in a hungry, furious battle. The mother fights back too, of course, slaughtering and eating the children. A fight to the death between both mother and children that doesn't end unless either the mother is dead or all the children have been culled. Usually the children win, and when they do, only 2 to 3 babies tend to survive. These babies will then proceed to eat both their dead mother and their dead siblings, and that's how they reproduce. So as you can see, dear God, the reason nobody knows anything about this is because first, literally everything in the area is murdered by the Bulette before the ritual can even begin. And those that stumble into the area after the fact are also murdered as part of the ritual. So as you can see, no one gets to see how the mating occurs because they would probably just die. But then, no one had ever seen a Bulette egg because they only stay as eggs for a few hours before they hatch. So there you go. Mystery solved. Though that doesn't explain why seeing a Bulette baby is so rare. Maybe by the time that they're done eating their mother, they are already old enough to look like adults, but who knows. The lore certainly doesn't explain that. Though I will also mention that the birthing liquid from the eggs, I guess the yolk, when combined with the bone dust of the mating ritual, makes for a powerful fertilizer, it seems. Allegedly, when fed to a tree, it will make it grow twice as tall, and may even be powerful enough to make trees produce twice as many fruits, make a rose bloom in winter, or even make wheat sprout in sand. Very, very powerful combination. You might just have to deal with an hungry Bulette baby to get it. Oh, by the way, I did mention that the wheezing sounds of a Bulette breathing, Bulettes do indeed breathe air, so they do have to come out to the surface to breathe every so often, or at least have an air tunnel from their burrow all the way up to the surface. It's just something that you don't really think about too much with creatures like these. It is also worth to point out that they are warm-blooded. Now, when it comes to their desires for food, the Monster Manual told us that they hate elves and dwarves, but love eating halflings. Unfortunately, there is no lore reason for this that I could find, other than the fact that many monsters do indeed love eating halflings, and many of those same monsters also do hate eating dwarves, so there must be something about their taste. However, I did find, outside of halflings, Bulettes do love the taste of horse. Apparently, one of the reasons why they find themselves fighting so many group of adventurers and why they are known to always pick fights with large groups of well-defended caravans is just to eat 1 or 2 of their horses. Further, according to the 2nd edition Monster Manual, whenever they eat people, they're not picky at all about what goes inside of their gullet alongside those people. Meaning they will eat you alongside your weapons, armor, clothing, belongings, anything that you're wearing. Apparently their digestive acid is so strong that it can dissolve virtually anything, including magical items. This leads them to a eat first, think about it later type of mentality, which is why they can sometimes be seen eating normally inedible objects, such as bags of coin or wagons. But now, to end the video, the reason why Bulettes can dig through the ground just so damn fast, faster than literally any other creature in existence outside of ancient dragons, the reason for that is because when they dig, the Bulettes secrete a form of slime out of their skin that attaches to both their armored plates and to the ground around them. The slime magically dissolves earth into a malleable, muddy texture that allows the Bulette to partially swim in order to move rather than to just dig. Some sources even claim that the claws of the Bulette are barely used at all in its underground movement. Instead, they utilize their powerful tail as a form of propeller, like how a fish might swim in the water. The arms, get this, can be retracted into their body, which creates a more aerodynamic form to swim through the ground. It definitely more now like a land shark, doesn't it? The lore doesn't say this, but this would also explain how these creatures are able to jump so high even without a running start. If they are able to retract their legs into their body, it is possible that they may have a muscle mechanism to spring their legs out fast and with power, allowing for a great jump without any additional momentum. But that's just me spitting that out. It just sounds like it could be a thing. Anyhow, this slime that they secrete to soften earth can be collected, but not from the beast. Instead, you would have to go into the tunnel that the Bulette created. By collecting the soft earth from the tunnel, if you were able to extract the slime from it, then you could use it and it would function as the spell Transmute Rock, except that instead of transmuting rock to mud, you would transmute earth to mud. Farming communities that suffer from the attacks of a Bulette before the creature was slain are actually known to collect the earth from the creature's tunnels in order to rub the soft earth into their plows, because it allows their plows to cut through the earth as easy as a hand can cut through water. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Do please make sure to click the link in the video description and check out DC20 right now on Kickstarter. The game was an absolute blast to play with and I cannot wait to see the full release. Get access to the beta by pledging on Kickstarter using my link in the description below. DC20 guys, do not miss out on this, and thank you so much Dungeon Coach for supporting the channel, really appreciate it. Thank you all once again and I will see you all next time.